Hey everybody, it's Gypsy. Because of the weather, I'm not really working outside, so I decided to do, well, another type of video. This one, well, it has to do with last month's theme, not on my YouTube channel, but society chose it. Suicide Prevention Month, or Suicide Awareness Month, or whatever they call it. I don't participate in it. I ignore it. I don't acknowledge posts on social media about it. As many of you know, my son took his life 8.5 years ago. And I don't agree with how they handle mental illness and those who are suicidal. It is demeaning. They make the person, well, not feel human, first of all, which is the biggest mistake. And there's a dog wanting attention here. I don't know if you could see. It just makes you feel worse about yourself. Now, if we he's rolling over, want me to rub his tummy, I'm trying to talk. If we want to solve this problem with mental illness and suicide, we need to get to the root of the problem and change that. And that is the condition of our society. Now, I was born in 1964, and all my life I have watched society just decline the whole time. 58 years. And man, I never dreamed I would ever see anything like what's going on today. As long as we continue to allow what's going on now, to allow all of us to be slaves, to treat ourselves and others so disrespectfully, the suicide rate is going to climb. It's just going to keep continuing. We, as a mass consensus, have agreed to being slaves. We go to work to support ourselves and our families, yet the powers that be take the majority of our money. They tell us what we can and cannot do. They tell us what we can do with our own property, our own home, which we bought, excuse me. Oh, my friend's here. Okay, everybody, so my friend was here for a while. She came with her 2 dogs, and Sirius just had a blast. And now he's, well, last time I saw he was out in the yard chewing on the rawhide. But it started raining, so he's under the trailer again. So anyways, to continue what I was saying, if you think about, all right, like my age, it would be my grandparents and my great-grandparents. They didn't have all this stuff. Taxes and stuff were supposed to be temporary. Now, when my grandparents were young, they instituted the income tax, and then you had Social Security. All that stuff was supposed to be temporary. Yeah, I'm hearing to get us through the wars, World War I and World War II. Well, it never stopped. Now here you have their grandchildren and great-grandchildren still paying these taxes and stuff. Once the powers that be institute something like that, and they tell you it's temporary, it never is. They never get rid of it. So we have that with slavery. And when my grandparents were young and my great-grandparents were here, there was no taxes. That was what this country separated from England to get away from taxes. And we still had roads and stuff like that. Things were fine. But now you hear, we have to have taxes so we can have roads and this and that. Bullshit. When we work together as a community, it's going to get done. And here's the thing. The powers that be point out differences within all of us. There are less differences than there is more that we have in common. So we all want to be free and have happy lives. That's the biggest thing we have in common. We have to put aside our differences and focus on that. We have to first start with loving ourselves. We're taught not to love ourselves, and that is the biggest biggest thing that contributes to mental illness is not loving ourselves. And I don't care how selfless you are. If you don't love yourself, you really don't love others, no matter how good of an act you put on. So this causes mental illness within the self, and it spreads around. So we have to get out of the slavery thing. We have to work towards our freedom. We have to unite and say, enough is enough. We don't want this. We want freedom, and I mean true freedom. Yeah, you could sit there, especially if you're American, and talk all you want about how free you are. What about all that money they take that you earned? Those big wigs out there, the big wigs, they sit on their asses. I remember when I got laid off in 2009. Everybody's getting laid off, fired, pay cuts, and they voted themselves a raise. And they sit on their asses doing nothing while we're all working. I mean, come on. That contributes to depression. As long as we're willing to put up with that, things are not going to get better. We want our freedom. Having to register for every little thing. Getting a driver's license. Now, I admit, yes, you should go and learn how to drive. But having to register for that, having to register your car, your social security number, which, all right, now that really pisses me off. In my parents' day, you got your social security number when you turned 21. In my day, it was when you were a teenager and you got your first part-time job. When my kids were born, I couldn't even leave the hospital with my babies without them first having a social security number. This is getting ridiculous. These are all ways that they track us and keep us enslaved, keep track of us. What else? I mean, there are so many things that we have to be registered with. Oh, and now they're trying to talk us in to registering our gardens, our vegetable gardens. Yes. And they do it all nicely nice. Oh, so you can have community gardens, and it make it easier for you to help your community with your garden. Bullshit. What do you need that for? I'm growing food, and when I get it to the right place, my community is going to be aware because I will let everyone know that I have this food if you need something. I don't need to be registered with the government for that to happen. No, we don't need that. Okay? So this is how they keep track. They want to know what kind of food you're growing, etc. Why? Because that's another contribution to mental illness and people being suicidal is the poisons they put in our food. That's why we must grow our own. There is no need to register that. So they are enslaving us in all these little tiny things. That is the biggest slavery thing that, oh my gosh. And what happened with my son? We've always lived under the poverty level. I was a single mother. He wasn't planning on going to college, but he was talked into it. Back in my day, if you wanted to go, great. If you didn't, so what? You'll survive, you get a job, you'll do well. My kids get to school, and they're telling the kids, if you don't go to college, you're not going to make it in the world. You'll be out on the streets. So my son, he goes to college. Now how this first starts, the kids are in high school, and they're shoving credit cards down their throats at that age. I couldn't believe it. And then they go to college, they take out these loans, and my son was going to get loans, and I didn't even know about these loans. What happens is they get out of college, and they have so much debt, they don't even know how they're going to survive. What I'm against is them handing out this money to the kids willy-nilly, and then these kids get out of college, get into the real world, and realize they're already screwed before they even started. Because what my son told me was they are planning on taking so much out of my check to pay back my loans. I don't know how I'm going to pay for rent, Mom, and I don't know how I'm going to buy food. That is wrong. And what do we really need college for? Before colleges, somebody was interested, a young person was interested in a profession, they went and they would watch, um, you know, people who, people who did those kinds of jobs, whatever it might be, and they apprenticed. That's how they learned. You didn't go to college. If you want to go to college, fine, but be careful with the debt. Be very careful with that. If you can avoid it at all, do so. But people don't have to go to college. You don't have to. The world's not going to come to an end if you don't. In fact, you're ahead of the game financially if you don't go. And, and that was the biggest thing for my son. He also told me in middle school, they were wanting the kids to pick a major already. And it's just, the pressure. Okay, so they are already starting with these kids, brainwashing them in school. And what they were doing with my kids' generation was teaching them to go against their parents. Teaching them that their parents are bad and awful and we know nothing, so you have to hate your parents and go against them. Go against your family. Go against your family's morals, your family's traditions, etc. And again, that is tearing apart the family. I've talked about this several times. So as long as you have this shit, this slavery, separation of the family, trying to make us inhuman, make us without emotions, make us a machine, we're going to have this problem. You're going to have people opting out of the physical life. And it's going to get worse if we don't change it, if we don't band together and say enough is enough. Each and every one of us should have the right to the life that we want, regardless of what that life might be. I prefer a simple life. I don't have much, and I like it that way. Others might want a life involved more in technology and stuff like that, something fancier. That person should be able to have that, just as I should be able to have what I want. When you are telling people from a very, very young age what they should want, how they should live, and who they are, you're going to have mental illness, you're going to have suicide. The control, the slavery, it's got to stop. We are all united, yet we come here to be individuals. We did not come here to be their slaves, those at the very top of that pyramid. We did not. And it's time we stand up and say enough is enough. It doesn't matter if we agree with each other spiritually, religiously, politically, or any of that's not important. To each his own. But when it comes to our freedoms, that's where we're united, and we need to stand up and say enough. If you truly, truly want to do something about suicide and change that, that's where it starts. It's no joke. I watched it with my son. And there is nothing worse than being a suicide survivor. Okay, someone who lost someone to suicide. You look at my son's obituary. In the list of survivors, guess whose name's first? Mine. And it hurts like hell. We want to change this. We need to change society. It's the only way. I'm going to say it right out. Screw the therapists. They don't know what they're doing anymore. It's society that needs to change for mental illness and suicides to diminish. As Krishnamurti said, it is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Blessed be, and make it a joyful one.